Okay, so hello to all our audience of Metal Zone Radio Show on Oxygène Radio. We are at the Zénith in Nantes, France, and we have the huge pleasure to be with one member from a band we don't introduce. Band coming from UK, it's called MARILLION, and we are with one member. So first of all, hello, can you first introduce to our audience?
Hi, yes, I'm Steve ROTHERY. I'm the guitarist and founder member of MARILLION. It's been my job for the last 43 years.
Okay. So a long time in that job.
Yes, I better get a real job sometime.
Yeah. Okay, so first of all, thanks for taking time to answer some questions. How are things in your life at the moment?
Yeah, things are generally very good. We're kind of in the middle of this leg of our European tour, which is going incredibly well. I mean, the only hardship is sleeping on a tour bus, if anyone's ever done that. Tonight we have a 13-hour drive to Stuttgart, which will be quite a challenge. But then it's followed by a couple of days off, and all my family are flying in from the UK. It's my daughter's 30th birthday. So, yeah, it'd be really, really nice to see them.
Okay. So we wish a happy birthday to her. So you released in February your 20th studio album called An Hour Before It's Dark. How much did the coronavirus period affect the making of this album?
Well, I think it made it a lot slower. Although Steve didn't originally want to write about the pandemic, I think it kind of it filtered in as it would do in the circumstances when it's such an important life-changing event. And there was a period of time when we didn't work because of the lockdown. There was a period of time when the band worked without me, and I worked at home because I've got a studio at my home. But it didn't slow us down. We maybe lost 6 months because of the pandemic.
Okay, cool. So not so much.
No, probably not. No.
Did you about this album? Did you consider it as a concept album or not?
Not really. It's just the way that it evolved. Really, I mean, lyrically, especially, just Steve writes about what's happening around him and what he's experiencing most of the time. So it just kind of bled into the subject matter of the record, really.
Okay. About the topics, what topics do you cover on this album?
Well, there's everything from the genetic manipulation and reprogram the gene, be hard on yourself. It's Steve's personal philosophy that we could be doing better for the planet, I think. Crowing the Nightingale, it was based on Steve's reading of a book of poetry by Leonard Cohen called the Little Book of Longing, I think. Sierra Leone is based just on an idea Steve had of a man who is extremely poor in West Africa, who finds this giant diamond and the freedom that it gives him. And then the final track, Care, is very much about, I suppose, like the lyric says, the angels of this world are not to be found on the walls of churches, really. Just the incredible sacrifice of so many people during the pandemic, doctors and nurses and health workers, to try and save lives.
Okay. So, why did you decide to record again at Real World Studios, stunning rural surroundings near the city of Bath in southwest England?
Well, it is one of the best recording studios in the world. We didn't make that much of the album there. Most of it we made at our own studio at the Racket Club. But it's a great place to go to just for the vibe, for the equipment they have, to try different ideas, to immerse yourselves in the process of writing, and also great for filming as well. It's a very photogenic place, it worked out really well for us. Okay. And in terms of Bath is a beautiful city. It's where my daughter lives, so I see quite a lot of it these days.
Okay. Cool. How important was Michael Hunter's, who is the producer of the album, contribution to this album, An Hour Before Dark?
I don't think it would probably exist in its current form without Mike. Really, he was a person who would sift through all our jams and help us pick out and develop some of these and put them in some sort of logical framework. So he really has been like the sixth member of the band, really, which is a lot of pressure for somebody who's producing and engineering. And I think at times we drove him slightly insane, but he seems to have recovered now.
Okay, cool. You are the pioneers of the crowdfunding. Had you realized in the late 90s that you were ahead of your time?
Not really, but I think, we've proven to be. I think just calling the album Marillion.com was a very shrewd move in terms of, it was just in the very early days of the World Wide Web and bands starting to use the internet. And crowdfunding is a brilliant idea, and everyone's done it since, really.
And what do you think of the evolution of internet, on all we can find now, on the haters, on all that? There is positive and negative side.
Exactly. I mean, from the musician side, it's a great leveler in terms of media and the exposure you get from social media and YouTube. But on the other hand, it gives everyone an equal voice, including some people who really don't know anything. And also, it makes it maybe difficult to sell music when everything is given away for free on the internet, in terms of streaming content. As close to free as you could really get with things like Spotify and Apple Music and YouTube. But you have to accept that's just the way the world's gone and try and use those things to your advantage. Right. So that's, it's just a fact. We're lucky because most of our audience is sort of 30 plus, so most of them will want to own physical product, where most people under 30 are just happy to stream music as they want it, really.
We have to talk about the Marillion Lightsavers pledges. Whose idea was that?
Well, it's basically when we were doing our first tour after the pandemic in the UK, we couldn't get insurance because if one of us got ill, then the tour would be cancelled and we would lose like £120,000, with all the rental of the venues and the trucks and the buses and everything else. So it was our idea to try and give ourselves some sort of insurance policy against that happening. So we had people pledging money, and in return they got different things, and it wasn't quite as simple as we thought it was going to be, and we did give all the money back to people. We didn't need to use it, but but it's a difficult time really for musicians. I mean, for English musicians, we have all these different things to deal with: Brexit, the pandemic, and now the problems in the world with inflation and the energy crisis and global warming, the war in Ukraine. It's like nothing's simple anymore.
Not very optimistic, but we have to keep on.
You have to. That you can only move forward, really. You can't give up.
Okay. So, as you say, you've been a musician for a long time now, more than 40 years now. What was the first piece of music that moved you?
It was when I was 15. I mean, I used to listen to kind of film music before that, but rock music, was hearing Genesis track called The Knife on a radio show when I was 15 that I happened to tape, and I listened to this section. It wasn't even the whole track, but it kind of really pulled me in and made me want to hear more. And then I kind of shortly after thought of, I wanted to play the guitar. And then by the time I was 16, that's all I wanted to do. I left school at 16 and played the guitar 10 hours a day for the first year and joined my first band pretty soon after that.
Okay. What was the name of your first band?
It had various names. Pegasus was one of them. Purple Haze, I think, was one of them as well. Yeah.
So, looking back to your childhood, in which musical environment did you grow up?
There wasn't that much music in my house. I was brought up, my mother and my sister. My sister used to play, I think, Elvis Presley records. I think my mum would listen to Jim Reeves. That was about it. I grew up really at the time when the Beatles were coming through. So I suppose that was always going to be an influence on how I play and write. And like I say, I used to listen to film music, that kind of like the James Bond, John Barry stuff, and so I didn't. I'm self-taught. I didn't study music at school.
Listening to the radio?
Yeah, listen to the radio and then discovering rock music, like I say, when I was about 15, and then all those bands, a lot of the progressive bands, but various other bands as well, just rock generally.
Okay. What's currently in your musical rotation now?
What other bands?
I tend to listen to more songwriters than anything else these days. People like Bon Iver and Sufjan Stevens, and I was listening to an artist known as Leur, who sadly passed away at the weekend. A very talented singer-songwriter, died of pneumonia at the age of 40, which is scary for anyone to be taken from us so young. Yeah. But I tend to listen to that kind of stuff more than rock or even progressive rock. I'm more about hearing great songs than anything else.
Okay. So you are on tour, of course. You are playing many shows in France, and that's very good for the French people. What are your plans after this tour called Light at the End of the Tunnel?
I'll get home and I'll try and finish work. I've been working on a solo album since before the pandemic called Retrouvez, which is an instrumental space-themed album, and I'm kind of about halfway through that. Halfway through a project with Thorsten from Tangerine Dream. Okay. I'm supposed to be doing an album with Steve Hackett next year, if we can both find the time.
Very busy.
Yeah, and various other things as well. Loads of people ask me to play on their records, and I foolishly say yes, and then each time you do it, it's like 3 or 4 days' work. So, and then just life,
And life. Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. So, to conclude, Steve, did you have something to add and some words for your French fans? Because we are in Nantes, France.
Yeah, no, I love touring France. I actually came to Nantes with my family on holiday in 2011. So yeah, no, it's great to be here. Everything, the people, the scenery, the culture. The wine, the food, it's yeah.
We are known for that.
Yeah, it's a great place to tour.
Okay, cool.
Thank you very much, Steve. This was Steve from MARILLION at the Zénith in Nantes, of course. So follow the band on the social medias, buy the album. If you like the band, I'm sure an hour before it's dark, and come to the shows. It's important live. So wish you a lot of good things for you, for your family, for your friends. Good show for tonight, and thank you, Steve.
Thank you. You're very welcome.